First thing that we're going to do is make a classic pie dough crust. You want to make sure that you're using super cold butter. So we're going to mix this for a classic flaky dough crust. So that means what we're looking for is for the butter to be mixed in until it's about the size of a half walnut. Start the mixer again on low speed and then slowly add the water. One of the secrets of a nice tender flaky dough is to not overmix it. So as soon as the dough comes together in one lump mass, then you're done. And it should be about a centimeter or so thick. You want to be brief about this because you want to keep everything nice and cold. Another secret to a flaky pie crust is to keep the dough super cold the whole time that you're working with it. And these will be our top and bottom crust. So now it goes in the chiller to give it a nice rest. So we have our cold rested dough. So now let's make our pie shells. Try not to use a lot of flour because that will dry the dough out. That is going to help even out the dough. It'll prevent a lump from forming like in the very center. The way to roll out a dough is take your rolling pin and you're going to roll away and then you're going to roll towards you. And then you're going to pick up the dough and rotate it 90 degrees and then do it again. Roll away, roll toward you. Try to avoid rolling over the edge of the dough because if you do that, it'll become really, really thin on the edge. Moving it around like this will keep it from sticking onto your surface. This I'm going to use for the top crust. And now we're ready for the other crust. When you're making a flaky pie dough, you want to make sure that the dough stays cold the whole time. It's a little bit of a challenge in Singapore, so at some point during the process, you might want to put the dough back in the refrigerator to get it cold again before you keep working with it. All right, we're at about 27. I want to make sure that this dough will fit into the 9-inch pie plate. If your dough is nice and cold, you can just lift it up, transfer it over, or you can do a trick by rolling up the dough with your rolling pin and then rolling it out onto the pan, and then you can adjust. Gently lift up the edge and push down along the sides as you rotate the pie plate. Cut down. You can also do it on your surface and then just make some slices around the edge, just like that. Now we're going to put this back into the refrigerator to give it a nice good chill again. Okay, let's make the apple filling. So we're using Granny Smith apples here. Is great for baking because it keeps its shape. It doesn't get too mushy in the oven when it bakes, and it also has a super delicious tart flavor that works really well in an apple pie. And then what you're going to do is take each quarter and take your knife, and we're going to make one cut on the diagonal to cut out the core. So this to me is a perfect thickness because if you cut them too thin, by the time the crust is nice and golden, nice and cooked through, those thin pieces of apple are going to be overbaked and you're going to wind up with a mushy pie. Mix everything together right when you're ready to assemble the pie. If you mix these apples with the sugar is going to start pulling the juices out of the apple and the whole mixture is going to get really, really soupy on you. So if you want to do the apples ahead of time, take your lemon juice and drizzle it. The lemon juice is going to prevent the apples from oxidizing. you'll see it's going to start to look moist because that sugar is already starting to pull the moisture out of the apples. This is perfect. The apples look just barely moistened. Okay, let's put it together. I'm just adding them in a little bit loosely, and this will help it bake thoroughly. This is going to add a bit of richness to the apple pie. My grandmother always added butter to the apple pies that she made. So what I'm doing here is I'm pressing along the rim of the pie tin. I'm pressing pretty firmly to get it to stick. Scraps. My grandmother, she would take her pie dough scraps, lay them on a pan like this, just cut them into rough pieces. This is like a treat, it's just very rustic, and she would sprinkle cinnamon sugar over the top and then just bake that, and then you have little cinnamon sugar cookies. This is going to help seal the two crusts together and also make it look really nice. Then, because we pressed like that, some of the dough is going to come over the edge again, so I want to give it one last trim. Try to keep the pie dough within the tin. If you have a big fluted crust along the edge and it's kind of hanging over the side of the pie tin, when it goes in the oven, it gets warm, that crust is going to fall over the edge. So make sure that that crust is right within that pie tin. Make one large cut right in the center, and then we'll make some cuts as we rotate the pie around. Okay, now we're ready to bake.